Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone here. Good morning. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is what we call our group learning program, where each Sunday and Wednesday I come together with students, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment. What we do is we start with meditation, and then I share a talk afterwards to be able to help students to understand what the Buddha taught. Today's topic is the mental discipline section of the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is the core central teaching of the Buddha, and in order to be able to get to this enlightened mental state, you need to know the Eightfold Path inside and out, backwards, forwards, left, right, up, down. So that's why I'm sharing here at the beginning of the group learning program, which we just restarted a few weeks ago, this Eightfold Path in detail so that students can be able to understand the path. The Buddha figured out how to get to this enlightened mental state. What enlightenment is where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. An individual would train their mind, getting to the point where they no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this can be eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. Oftentimes people think that it's the outside world that's causing these feelings, but what you can see through the teachings of the Buddha is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. That's why you can actually eliminate them. It's not through belief or rites or rituals or ceremonies or worship or anything like that this would occur. So you're not believing a bunch of things in the teachings of the Buddha and hoping something good happens when you die. You're learning, growing, and developing in this life. You're also not doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer. The Buddha never taught any of these kinds of things. So if you see people that are associating belief or rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer to the teachings of the Buddha, those aren't his actual teachings. He's teaching you to learn and grow and develop and train your mind. So because of that, we actually start each one of our classes with meditation. So if you'd like to join us for meditation, I'm going to start by doing some chanting to ease us into the meditation. This helps to kind of prepare your mind as it eases into the meditation. You guys are welcome to chant along if you like. I have chanting sheets over there on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself and get a chanting sheet. That way you can chant along and experience improved benefit as you're easing into the meditation. For those of you guys that are online, if you would like to get access to this chanting sheet, you can go to buddhadailywisdom.com, click on free books, and then just scroll down towards the bottom and you'll be able to see the chants there and be able to download it for free. During the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help his students commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would recite his teachings orally. This is the way that they actually remembered the teachings. So it started out as a learning tool, as a learning device. Nowadays, people think of chanting in other ways, but it's important to look at what the Buddha actually did because that's what's going to lead to your enlightenment. That he used chanting as a learning tool, as a learning device, helping his students commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, they would come together and recite his teachings. They didn't have books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts. YouTube didn't exist 2,500 years ago. So they needed some way to be able to remember the teachings, and that's what chanting was for. If you look at the English translations of the chants, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of this, I don't think that the Buddha even created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death. Because the Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me, right? This would be ego and arrogance if somebody did this. So instead, his students would have had enormous amounts of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for him. Because if you learned from a teacher how to move from anger, sadness, and frustration, and all these other discontent feelings to the peace and joy that is the enlightened mental state, you might actually have a lot of appreciation, gratitude for this teacher too. Because the Buddha didn't want anything or expect anything from his students. He was just helping them out of the kindness of his heart. So that's why I think these chants actually came from his students, either during his life or after his death, because the Buddha wouldn't have taught people to chant these kinds of things to him. So we use it as a way to ease into the meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. Once we're in the meditation, I'm going to be providing guidance where I'm essentially going to be teaching you and instructing you how to meditate while we're actually meditating. But then there's going to be a period of time of quietness where we're just all meditating together. Now, during this period of time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car go by, a dog barking, a bird chirping. Someone here might cough or sneeze or something like that. If you're in meditation with a craving for permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you will cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. That's what's causing the mind to experience these discontent feelings, that the mind craves permanence. While you live in an impermanent world, things are constantly changing. So if you understand how the world truly functions and you're in meditation, understanding that yes, there's going to be sounds, that's normal. These sounds are going to arise, they're going to change, and they're going to fade away. You can be at peace and you can be with joy. But if you're in meditation with a craving for permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you'll cause your mind to be frustrated or annoyed. So the Buddha's teachings are helping you understand the way the world is. He's not helping you to understand the way the world should be. He's explaining to you the way the world is. That way you can be peaceful and joyful, understanding how the world's constructed. And you're going to see that things are constantly changing in the world around you. So when you're meditating, there's not going to be permanent silence, and you can just rest at ease and be peaceful and joyful in your meditation, understanding that that's how the world functions. After that period of time of quietness, where everyone here at the temple and everyone online were meditating, we're going to come out of that with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand the mental discipline section of the Eightfold Path. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times as part of your journey to enlightenment. It's kind of like assembling a tool belt, and you would use these different tools at different times in your journey to enlightenment. And I teach all these different positions in the various courses and classes and retreats that I share. But today I'll just give you a little bit of suggestions on the seated position, because that's oftentimes how people are first learning. Is you could sit on the floor, you could sit in a chair. Maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can really sit however you like. There's not just one way to sit, because that would be permanence. So you can sit however you're comfortable. The things that I'm going to share with you are just suggestions or recommendations that you might consider. And if there's something that I'm sharing that is going to be helpful for you, feel free to use it. But if you find something else that isn't what I'm sharing, but something you figured out on your own, feel free to use that, because it's important that the body's comfortable, not luxurious and not painful, but the body's comfortable. So these are things you might consider. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of help soften your seat. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might just choose to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, it can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. If you would like, some people put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it, but it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. And that's the same thing for anybody in a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you like. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting here in a chair with my legs crossed, so that's an option for you too. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect. With the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation so that you can actively train it. What meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you're real rigid with the upper body, your mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be erect with the sternum up and the shoulders back, because not only will it keep your mind attentive and alert so you can actively train the mind, but it'll make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to do some chanting to ease us into the meditation. You guys are welcome to join in because it'll help you during the meditation. And then I'm going to come back in with the guidance afterwards. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Wat Tung Mahakavanang Apivate Ami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami. ส สุปฏิปันโนเอมะเกวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสเอมะเกวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโอโตภะคะวะติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath, not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath or the sensation of air coming in and out of the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาโพตังมหาเกวันังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารนังสัมมุโนสคาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone joining us online as well. Today is our group learning program, and what I'm going to share with you guys is the mental discipline section of the Eightfold Path. This is part 3 of a 3-part series that I've been doing each Sunday to be able to help people to understand this core central teaching of the Buddha. The Eightfold Path is the core teaching of the Buddha, and everything else plugs into this. This is the path to enlightenment. In terms of you maybe being interested to get to this enlightened mental state, you would need to know this teaching inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. You would like to be able to learn it with the original words of the Buddha. I know that maybe sounds pretty obvious that if you're going to study the teachings of the Buddha, that you would like to study with his original teachings and his original words. But there's not very many places in the world that actually share the original words of the Buddha. This is why you see so many misunderstandings in the world. People might think that the teachings of the Buddha are based in belief, where you're believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. That's not actually true. The Buddha's not teaching you that. He's actually teaching you how to get to peace and joy now in this life, getting to an ideal life now. Sometimes people see rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, prayer, and things of this nature, and maybe think that that's actually part of the teachings of the Buddha when that's not actually true. The Buddha never taught any of those kinds of things. He taught you to do this inner work of growing and developing and becoming a better and better human being. And it's this Eightfold Path that's going to guide you in being able to do that. I've been to over 200 temples in my life, and I've only ever been to one temple that actually shares the original words of the Buddha. And this is why you see so many misunderstandings. This is why the world is having so many difficulties and struggles, because people don't understand how to train their mind to be able to experience this enlightened mental state. We've learned how to clean our body as a human being when we were growing up as a child. People taught us that. So we learned how to clean the body. We brush our teeth, we shampoo our hair, we clean our face, we do all these kinds of things to clean our body. And you might have not enjoyed that when you first started out in life because you were busy playing and you weren't interested in learning how to clean the body. But eventually, by the time we got to 10, 12, 14 years old, we started taking showers regularly, and we actually came to enjoy it because we saw the benefits in it. Well, if you haven't learned how to clean the mind, you're not addressing this full being who you are. There's a body and there's a mind also. And that's what the mental discipline section is helping you to be able to understand, is how to clean up this mind. Because if you walked around the world in not taking a shower for a few days or a few weeks or a few months or even a few years, you'd be quite uncomfortable walking around like that if you're not cleaning the body. Well, this helps you to be able to understand why your mind isn't comfortable in certain situations where you're experiencing stress and anxiety, guilt, shame, fear, and all these other discontent feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, embarrassment, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings are uncomfortable for you to experience, but in the unenlightened state, with a lack of wisdom, an individual won't understand how to train their mind to get free of that. And that's what the Buddha figured out, is he figured out how to train the mind to get free of all those discontent feelings, where you no longer need to experience anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. You can actually eliminate all of that from the mind. And it's through training the mind with this Eightfold Path that's going to help you to be able to do that. Oftentimes people kind of relegate themselves to experiencing these discontent feelings because they don't understand there's an escape for them. There's a way to get out of that. Oftentimes we think that these discontent feelings are coming from something external. You might think it's your mom and dad that are making you angry, or your brothers and sisters are frustrating you, or you might think your boss is annoying you. This isn't actually true. It's actually one's own mind that's causing these feelings. This is the reason why you can eliminate them. And it's this Eightfold Path that's going to teach you how to do that. So already in the previous 2 Sundays, I've shared the wisdom section and the moral conduct section to be able to help students to understand this path to enlightenment. What we started out with is right view, where an individual is learning the Four Noble Truths and the 4 simple statements that the Buddha shares with you in a way that you can independently verify that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. The very first part of right view is to understand that the mind in the unenlightened state is going to experience discontentedness. And this is a problem that each unenlightened being is experiencing, that the mind is shaken up, it's unsteady, it's unstable, that it's only a matter of time before you get angry or sad or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. Of course, you experience happiness and excitement here and there, but it's only a matter of time before you get angry or sad or irritated or frustrated about something. The mind essentially goes up and down in the unenlightened state. Well, the second noble truth, it was just part of right view, is helping you to understand the cause of this problem is the mind's craving, desire, attachment, the mind's longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of its affection. It's like the mind has an unquenchable thirst, where if the mind gets what it wants, it experiences happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and all those others like stress and anxiety, guilt, shame, and fear. Essentially what the unenlightened mind is doing is it's chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing. It's like the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind will chase after it. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst. So essentially, if an unenlightened being sees that it's sunny outside, they might get really happy and excited about that. But then when it rains, they'll be sad or frustrated. And then if the bank account balance is up here, you might be really happy and excited about that. But then when it goes down here, you might be sad or frustrated. The only thing that's happening here is change. That's all that's happened, is things have changed. And the world is full of change. But the unenlightened mind craves permanence. It's wanting things to be permanent. So, for example, if you've got in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend and you guys got together, you might have been so happy and excited about that. But when you guys broke up, you might have been angry or frustrated or lonely or bored, or you might have been missing this person. This wasn't your love that was causing your anger and sadness in that situation. It was the mind craving permanence, not understanding that this relationship is impermanent. Ever since the very beginning of the relationship, it was going to end someday. Even if you guys were together for the rest of your lives, more likely than not, one of you would have died first. And now the mind's going to experience that anger or sadness or the boredom or loneliness or some other discontent feeling. You can see this if you got a brand new car. Say that you brought this brand new car and you drove it to a store and you parked it and you came outside and you saw a scratch on your car. You might be frustrated or angry. It's not the scratch that's causing this, and it's not the person who scratched your car. What's causing it is the mind is craving permanence. It craves for things to be permanent, not understanding you live in an impermanent world, that things are constantly changing around you. So in this situation, you need to be able to understand that, yes, this paint's going to fade on the car. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn at some point. And if you crave permanence of this car, when you start experiencing change, the mind doesn't like it. But you can't believe what it is that I'm sharing with you, because none of the teachings of the Buddha are based in belief. You need to be able to independently verify what it is that I'm sharing with you. That's where you can have a breakthrough to being able to understand what's truly causing your feelings. Because if you keep blaming other people for the feelings that you're experiencing, you'll continue to stay stuck in those discontent feelings. So you need to be able to independently verify this, because when you don't understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, you'll become unskillful. You'll tend to push people away. This is called aversion, where the mind experiences painful feelings and it thinks the way to solve this is to push this person or the situation away. You might have done this with friends and family, thinking that that was going to solve your problem. But you can see when you push people away out of your life that you still get angry, you still get frustrated, you still get annoyed. Or the second thing you'll do when you don't understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings is you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile with people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And it damages your relationships. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another being, trying to fear them into doing things your way. Or the third thing you might do is put your expectations on people and trying to control people and pressure people to do things your way. And in that situation, again, you can't live harmoniously with all beings, because it's only a matter of time before you encounter someone who does things differently than you. The unenlightened mind wants everybody to do things this way. And the mind thinks my way is the best way. And if they do it my way, it's the right way. And if they do it another way, it's the wrong way. And now the mind craves this permanence. And you might like people when they do things your way. But when they don't do things your way, you might dislike them. And that dislike is actually coming from your own mind. It's caused by craving, desire, attachment. This craving for permanence, wanting and expecting things to be a certain way. But again, don't believe me. You need to be able to see this in your own life. So take a recent situation where you were angry or frustrated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. Might have been this morning, might have been yesterday or last week. Think about that situation. Look at it with these fresh eyes. What was it that your mind was longing, yearning for, that you were craving? And if you would have gotten it, you would have been happy. But because your mind didn't get what it wanted, it experienced anger, sadness, or frustration, or some other discontent feeling. You should be able to independently see this for yourself. And if you can't see that, let me know, because I will help you to be able to see this. I've had plenty of students over the years need help to be able to see this truth for themselves. So if you need help, we're going to pause a few times here and I'll be opening up for questions. You guys can ask any and all questions that you like. Here at the temple, if you'd like to ask a question, we have microphones in the white bowl in the center of the room. Just come get a microphone, take it back to your seat, press the gray button. You're going to see the lights come on, and you can just hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you're welcome to keep these microphones with you, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone. And then if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll be helpful so we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then for anybody who's online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, and I'll be be able to see that. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like. So the very beginning first teaching of the Buddha is this right view, understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings and that it's craving, desire, attachment. And you can have a breakthrough to being able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, but you can't believe it. You need to be able to penetrate into your own life through your own direct experience and see it for yourself. And I can give you example after example of how the mind is causing its own discontentedness due to this craving for permanence. And then the second part of, or I should say the third part of right view, which is the third noble truth, is to understand that you can eliminate your discontentedness. If you can get to the point where you can verify that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, this is very empowering, because if it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that means you can eliminate it. Where if it's other people who are causing you to experience these feelings, you can't do anything about it because you can't change other people. It's impossible for you to change 8 billion people in the world to do things your way. But when you come to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, it's very empowering, because now if you would like to change that, you can eliminate that by eliminating the craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. And the way that you do that is found in the fourth noble truth, which is another aspect of right view, which the Buddha helps you to understand that it's the eightfold path. That is the complete, perfect plan that's going to help you to be able to eliminate your discontent feelings. So that's why you need to be able to learn and understand and then practice the eightfold path in its entirety. But it starts with right view, where you understand it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Because again, what the mind's going to want to do when it has wrong view is blame other people. And it's going to push people away. It's going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile to people. And it's going to put its expectations on people, trying to control people. And you might actually be not only doing this to others, but people might actually be doing this to you. You might see people are pushing you away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile to you, or putting their expectations on you. And this is because their mind is practicing what we call wrong view. They're not able to see that it's their own mind that's causing these feelings. So the Buddha figured this out. That's what a Buddha does, is they figure this teachings out by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. Then they dedicate the rest of their life to sharing those independently discovered teachings with countless people, and countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime, and then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people can get to enlightenment after their death through training of the mind. So it starts with right view, and then I taught right intention, and I also taught this moral conduct, because the Buddha teaches moral conduct so that you can see this cause and effect between how you treat people and how they treat you. That when you put out harm and you're causing harm through your intention, speech, actions, or your livelihood, this harm comes back to you. Oftentimes we feel justified in being harsh and bitter and hostile to people. In the unenlightened state, when you're angry and bitter and harsh with the people around you, you might feel like they deserved it because you think that maybe they're the ones who are causing you to be angry and frustrated and all these other feelings. But when you come to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, you understand that one of the most unwise things you could ever do is be bitter and harsh and hostile with people. Because as long as you're putting that out, that's what's coming back to you. So the Buddha provides you the tools and the techniques of how to transform this in the mind, things like meditation and other things like this. And that's what we're going to penetrate into here with the mental discipline section of this eightfold path. I'm going to teach you right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is what actually helps an individual implement the moral conduct, because the moral conduct needs to be improved, because as long as you're out there being bitter and harsh and hostile with people, it's just coming back to you. It's kind of like if there was an oil pipe and this oil pipe busted and was spewing oil all over the world. It's putting oil all over the world. It's kind of messing up your world. It's kind of the same thing as if you're spewing unwise moral conduct into the world, hostility and bitterness and resentment and things like this, where you're impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful. That's all coming back to you. So you'd like to shut down that oil pipe so you're not spewing that all over the world. So that's why the Buddha is teaching the moral conduct. But you wouldn't be able to implement the moral conduct without the mental discipline. It's one thing to understand that it's unwise to be harsh and hostile and bitter with people, but it's a whole other thing to actually be able to do it, where you can be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful in all situations. So the mental discipline section is what's going to help you to be able to train your mind to the point where you can be polite, kind, friendly, respectful to all individuals. And the way that the teachings of the Buddha work is it's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. You can't just snap your fingers and start being polite and friendly and respectful to everybody in the world, because you have these certain pollutions that are in the mind that are hindering you from being able to do that. So that's why there's the mental discipline section to help you knock down those pollutions so that you can then implement the moral conduct. Sometimes people think the Buddha sat under a tree, he meditated, and then instantly got to enlightenment. This isn't actually true. The Buddha explains how it's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. So you're going to need some time to gradually train your mind to reduce these pollutions of the mind and implement the wise moral conduct. And as you do, you're going to see that not only do you eliminate the anger, sadness, frustration, and all those other discontent feelings, but the mind's going to experience the peace, calm, serenity, contentedness with joy. You'll notice that the mind has focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. Because when you uproot those pollutions out of the mind with this mental discipline, there'll be focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory in the mind. You'll get to the point where your personal and your professional relationships are really blossoming, that they're harmonious, that you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships any longer. And you'll notice that you're not even in a bad mood, that it's physically impossible for the mind to experience a bad mood by the time you get to enlightenment. So I'm going to share this mental discipline section with you using the original words of the Buddha. And I'm going to read this to you, but then I'm going to teach it to you and help you understand how to implement it. And as you guys have questions, I'm going to be pausing to see what questions you guys might have. So here's the words of the Buddha on right effort. He says, "In what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort." So he's talking about 4 things here that you need to apply effort to be able to do with the mental discipline section. Here, the first one, he's talking about preventing unwholesome mental states that have not arisen from arising in the mind. Because there are certain unwholesome mental states that are not currently in your mind right now. And you're going to need to apply the effort to prevent those from ever coming into the mind. An example of this might be like killing another human being. You probably have no interest in killing another human being. It's probably the farthest thing from your mind right now. What the Buddha is teaching you is those types of things, you're going to need to apply the effort to prevent them from ever coming into the mind. Because if you allow them to come into your mind, you might act upon these kinds of things. So there are certain unwholesome things that are really far from your mind. This is just one example. And you would like to apply the effort to prevent those from ever coming into the mind. Then the second one, abandoning unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind. There are certain unwholesome mental states that are in the mind right now. Every unenlightened being is experiencing that. And as long as you have these unwholesome mental states in the mind, it's causing your mind to experience discontentedness and making unwise decisions through one's moral conduct. So the Buddha teaches you to apply the effort to abandon these unwholesome mental states. Some of those examples might be, say you're in a current relationship and your mind's having a craving to have sex outside of your relationship. This will cause difficulties in your day-to-day life. It's going to cause unwholesome results for you when you make the decision to go outside your relationship. And you can experience all kinds of harms and difficulties because of that. So if you notice that unwholesome mental state coming up in your mind, you'd like to apply the effort to abandon that, to eliminate it, to cut it out of the mind. Or let's just say you have anger, frustration, irritation, or other discontent feelings that are coming up in the mind. These are unwholesome mental states. It causes your mind to be shaken up and you can't make wise decisions. So the Buddha teaches you to apply the effort to eliminate that out of the mind. So that's why we're doing this meditation. You're going to see in a moment that we're cutting off and letting go, so we can build that internal mechanism to cut off and let go and eliminate that out of the mind. So then the third part is produce unarisen, wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. There are certain wholesome mental states that you don't have in the mind right now that you're going to need in order to be able to guide your way to enlightenment. And those certain wholesome mental states are going to need to come into your mind, and you're going to need to apply the effort to bring those into the mind. So something like generosity. The Buddha teaches how generosity helps you to train your mind to let go. And this is going to help you to be able to train your mind to eliminate discontentedness, where when there's craving, desire, attachment in the mind oftentimes is somewhat selfish. You might be clinging and holding on to things, where if the mind thinks that if I spend 3 hours doing this, I want this in return. Or if I spend 3 days doing this, I want this in return. The mind needs to be able to understand that that is just the mind's selfishness. But you're going to need to do that to a certain degree, not with the selfishness, but with your work. You're going to need to say, okay, boss, I will come here for 5 days and I will work for this salary, right? But then as you acquire resources, you would like to be able to give back to people and share with generosity, where you're giving and sharing and being joyful and sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources without any expectation of anything in return. This is going to help your mind learn how to let go, because the mind craves permanence. So for example, if you take your clothes out of the washing machine and you see they're ripped and torn and you get upset or angry about that, that's your mind craving permanence, because you're craving for these clothes to be permanent, when in reality they are impermanent. And what you would be wise to do is practice some generosity. Start giving your clothes away. And this is going to help your mind to understand that they are impermanent. So you're going to need to apply the effort to bring this wholesome quality of generosity into your mind if your mind doesn't currently have that quality. Then you're going to need to bring in maybe a quality like compassion. Compassion is the concern for the misfortune of others. If you right now, maybe when you see somebody experiencing something unfortunate, that you're indifferent to whatever it is that they're experiencing, then that mind isn't experiencing the compassion. That maybe you're like, that person's addicted to drugs or alcohol, or that person's homeless or doesn't have food or in poverty. Maybe you're indifferent about that. And that's not going to help you to get to peace and joy. Or maybe you're on the other side of this, where there's worry and anxiety in the mind. And this isn't the middle way. The Buddha is teaching you to practice the middle way with compassion, where you have concern for the misfortune of others. Whether you choose to do something about that or not is a whole separate question. But you would like to arise this wholesome quality of compassion in your mind, because it's going to help you to get to the point where you're not indifferent and you don't have worry and anxiety. So you might need to apply the effort to bring this compassion into your mind if that's not currently in your mind. That's what the third part here is to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. The fourth aspect of right effort is to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not allowing them to fade away, and work to increase their growth in the mind, bring them to full perfection and full development. So there's most likely wholesome qualities that are currently in your mind right now, but they haven't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. So for example, loving kindness. You probably have loving kindness in your mind. What loving kindness is a genuine interest in seeing others be well. That's what loving kindness is, an active goodwill towards other beings. You probably have that in your mind, but it hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. Because when you're angry and you're hostile and bitter towards people, you're not practicing loving kindness in that situation. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll be able to be loving and kind with every single being that you interact with. So you're going to need to apply the effort to maintain, support, and encourage this loving kindness to permeate in the mind and fill up the mind, where you can be practicing loving kindness at all times during your day. So that's a practice of right effort, applying the effort to do that. Same thing with something like sympathetic joy. You probably have sympathetic joy in your mind. What sympathetic joy is where you have joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to their success. It's the opposite of jealousy or envy. When you have jealousy or envy, it's a painful feeling that the mind is experiencing, and you would like to get to the point where that's no longer there. So the sympathetic joy, where you have joy for others' success, even if you didn't contribute to it, is what will help you eliminate your jealousy and your envy. Because your jealousy and envy is coming from the mind's craving of wanting and longing, yearning for things that you don't currently have. So you probably have sympathetic joy in your mind. If you talk to one of your friends or family members and they're like, hey, I'm thinking about going to Thailand, you might be like, Thailand, that's a wonderful place. I've been there. They have really great massages. They have mango and sticky rice. You can play with elephants. Oh my gosh, you're going to have a great time. Enjoy yourself, right? You might have this sympathetic joy for them. But let's just say you're at work and there's a new position that opens up at the company, and there's a bigger salary, a bigger office, more responsibility, and you apply for this job, but some of your other coworkers do as well. And let's just say they get the job instead of you. You might be jealous or envious in that situation. Well, that's because your sympathetic joy hasn't been brought to full growth, full perfection, and full development. You're going to need to apply the effort to do that. So where you see your mind is jealous or envious, you're going to need to bring up this sympathetic joy. And that's what's going to help you here. So you need to apply the right effort to prevent unwholesome mental states that have not arisen from arising in the mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to abandon unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. And you're going to need to apply the effort to maintain wholesome mental states, not allowing them to fade away, bring them to full growth and full perfection and full development. Getting to the point where your mind is experiencing peace and joy, it's not just going to happen. It doesn't just magically happen. You're going to need to apply the effort and energy to be able to accomplish this. And now that's a permanent mental state that you can experience for the rest of this life, where your mind's completely peaceful and joyful. So right effort is an important component of this. The way that I teach my young son how to do this is I say, apply the effort to eliminate or kick out the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome. That's what you're looking to do. So do you guys have any questions on right effort and what this is? And remember, these are just examples here. The things that are unwholesome or wholesome, that are either in your mind or out of your mind, that's going to be unique to you. Because the next step that I'm going to teach you is what's going to help you to be able to practice right effort. Without the next step, you wouldn't actually be able to practice right effort. Yes, sir. You have a question?
Thank you, David. I have a question with right effort. If I'm trying to get a thought out of my mind, an unwholesome mental state, I know it's impermanence, I know it all, but the feeling's there and thought. Did the Buddha ever, or the Pali Canon, mention something like exaggerating, flooding, like if you're afraid of flying, people are hypnotized and they go through the whole thing. They experience the crash. They just live it out. It's sort of letting it through rather than pushing it away. Okay, come finish, do what you want to do. Finish the thought, exaggerate it to the all end, and then the thought is just gone. Is that something that comes from Buddhism, this idea of flooding?
Yeah, the Buddha taught this in regards to your death, because one of the things that people have difficulties with is their own death, and they have a lot of fear of their own death. So he taught what's called contemplation of death, or reflection on death, where you actually sit and you envision that you've actually died, and you play that out in your mind and you live that out. And that's what's going to help you to overcome that fear, because death's going to come visit you at some point, and you can wait for it to sneak up on you, or you can go confront it and say, hey, death, I'm going to come get comfortable with you. I'm going to get familiar with you. And you can do that not only for your own death, but the death of the people that's close to you. Because like mom, dad, brothers, sisters, these people are going to die. And if you allow it to sneak up on you, it'll feel like they've cut you off at the knees, or the carpet's been pulled out from under your feet. You can actually get to the point where you confront it, and now you're completely comfortable with it, and your mind's not experiencing painful feelings when you get close to your own death or the death of others. Because oftentimes people think that when someone dies, that it's their love that's causing their painful feelings. But it's actually the craving for permanence. The mind craves grandma and grandpa to be permanent, when in reality they are not permanent. So you can actually get to the point where people that are close to you die, and you can maintain your peace and you can maintain your joy. You're not joyful because they died. You're joyful despite the fact that they've died. You understand this is impermanence, right? So yeah, he taught this in regards to death. But it is possible to do these kinds of things with other situations too, where you actually put your mind in the situation that it doesn't want to be in. So like if you were afraid of large crowds and you had fear and stress and anxiety around large crowds, I would encourage you to go around large crowds and spend time getting comfortable with that. Because if you try to push away the large crowds, that situation, this is aversion. You'll never actually become comfortable with large crowds. And inside your mind, you'll still have that craving, desire, attachment, and it's going to produce a lack of concentration, and your mind's going to get stress and anxiety in these situations, because someday you'll be walking through a town or a city and you'll turn the corner, and next thing you know, boom, you're in the middle of a big political protest and didn't even realize that's what was occurring. And now you're all stressed and having anxiety. Whereas if you train your mind to eliminate that, you can actually get to the point where you're comfortable and you're at ease in that situation. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question because you just mentioned about the right will and right intention, and also now the right effort. So, for example, if for the he did lots of killings, and when I think about him, I is of anger or frustration. But here on the mention, as you just mentioned, we should have this contempt. Everyone, even he did something that without right effort. And also there's a scenario when my friend's boyfriend cheated with her, and she asked me and come to me and asked my attitude towards her boyfriend. And for me, it's disgusting. It's really bad. And I share the same compassion. So that's kind of like some anger towards her boyfriend. But here it also asks us like, so I was like, yeah.
Sure. So I didn't teach in this class the entire Eightfold Path. I'm just focusing on the mental discipline. So right intention isn't exactly what you're thinking right now. It's actually much deeper than that. But nonetheless, what you can do in these situations where you see your mind having anger towards others is understand that what's happening there is you're having a craving and an expectation for other people to function in a certain way. In your mind, you think this is the way human beings should function. And if they function that way, I like them. And if they don't, I'm going to dislike them, or I'm going to have anger towards them. So what you need to be able to get to is where you separate the choices and decisions that someone makes from the person themselves, where you can disagree with the choices and the decisions that someone makes, but you still love the person. When you love a person, what this is unconditional love, where they don't have to meet any condition for you to love them, that you can have a genuine interest in seeing them be well, active goodwill towards them, while still disagreeing with their choices and decisions. And this is something that the mind needs to be trained to be able to do, because as you're coming to this world, you have craving, desire, attachment, where you want people to do things a certain way. That's why we come into the world crying as a little baby, because we're hanging out in our mom's stomach. We're having a good old time. We're all by ourselves. The food's pumping in on the umbilical cord. We're having a good old time in there all by ourselves. And next thing you know, here comes a bunch of impermanence where we get pushed out into the world, or we have surgery and we're brought out into the world. And right away, we start crying, right? because the mind's discontent, because we're craving that permanence. We want to be in that womb. And that's why when you come out, as soon as they clean you up, they wrap you in a really tight blanket so you can feel like you're in your mom's stomach again, right? And then they start giving you milk, right? So this will kind of satisfy the mind in that situation. But the mind's discontent because it's craving permanence. So you need to be able to separate the choices and decisions that someone makes, where you can understand, I disagree with my friend's boyfriend that he chose to have sex with another woman, but you don't have to hate him or be angry at him because it's just causing harm to your own mind. Instead, just understand that, hey, you think in your opinion that was an unwise decision, but you can still love him, meaning you would like to see him be well. And if that's what his choices and decisions are, then so be it. Then he's off, doing those kinds of things, and your friend's off doing whatever she's doing. And you can just maintain your peace and joy where you don't have a craving for everybody to do things a certain way. Mm-hmm. Yep. You're welcome. Yes, sir.
I hope I managed to formulate my question properly. It's on the subject of anger. Particularly in face of tyranny and horror and atrocities, like so many terrible things happening in the world at the moment, and how do you face these atrocities that are happening when you know that a change needs to happen? How do you act for change without anger, without frustration? How when you are faced with terrible acts of injustice and repression, do you not only stay calm but act towards change? It feels like that's my question, I guess.
Okay, so the way you do it is through training the mind with the Eightfold Path. You need to know the entire Eightfold Path and train your mind to not have craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning. Because when you see something that's unfortunate happening in the world, those are decisions that are being made by other people. And when your mind is angry or frustrated about that, that's because your mind is craving for everybody in the world to do things a certain way. The mind is craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world. So if you can eliminate the craving for the world, you're going to see that here in a minute. The Buddha talks about craving for the world. You need to eliminate craving for the world. But instead of longing, yearning, and craving, if you are all the way on the other side where you could care less about what's going on in the world, that's not peace and joy there either. So the Buddha is teaching you to come to the middle where you can make wise decisions towards your own improvement, your own growth and development in life. And if you'd like to contribute to the wider world, that's a choice that you could make. And you'll do that better without craving, desire, attachment. When you have craving, desire, attachment, you can only be happy if people do things your way. And the mind's angry and frustrated when you don't have that. So because you live in an impermanent world, you're never going to exist in a world where everybody does things a particular way. That is permanence. There's no possible way that that's ever going to occur. So the mind needs to be able to have the wisdom to understand the world is impermanent and not crave for it to be permanent, but also not all the way be over here where you could care less about what's going on in the world. You need to come to the middle where you yourself are training your own mind to experience improvement through not longing, yearning. And then if you would like to contribute to the world to help other people to understand how to make wise decisions in the world, you can do that through educational opportunities for people to learn and grow and develop. But each person needs to decide for themselves that that's something that they're interested in. You can't help someone if they're not interested in learning and growing. You can't force someone to make decisions your way. So that's why you need to be able to learn how to do it calmly and patiently with gradual decisions without having craving, desire, attachment. Because if you have craving, desire, attachment, you're just going to be angry and you're going to make a bunch of unwise decisions. So you need to be able to learn the entire Eightfold Path. I suggest people to start with this first book. And that's why I give it away for free, because this is what's going to help you to be able to actually completely transform your mind. You can get this for free by downloading it from our website. You can take it and go print it if you like. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing costs. That way we can use those funds to buy more books. Or you can order it on Amazon. This is the best place to start. And what I do in this program each Sunday is I go chapter by chapter, helping students to be able to understand this. So in order to be able to stay calm in the face of what you're calling atrocities, you're going to need to eliminate your craving for the world to be a certain way. And what's going to help you to do that is the Eightfold Path. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
You, Teacher David. So my situation is not interact with human being, which is heaven yesterday afternoon. So I was taking photo with my friend in the coconut market. After we took some photos and we were staying nearby the palm trees, and I was scrolling on my phone about the photos, and suddenly there was a snake come towards to me and it crawling on my foot. I was so scared and my body was froze. And last night when I closed my eye to sleep, and that scene was so vivid on my mind. And even when we were doing the meditation, when I closed my eyes, I could not focus on my breathing. And I was thinking why it comes to me. There's a lot of people around there, and my friend was next to me. And I am the one scared of snake, and she doesn't scared of snake. Why it comes to me?
It's just a choice and decision that snake made, and the choice and decision that you made. It's not anything mystical or magical or anything like this. Nothing's controlled that snake to do it. It's just you chose to stand in that place. That snake chose to, crawl in that direction. The only reason why you're having difficulties with it is because you have a craving for a certain experience. You never want to see any snakes. That's the permanence that the mind is experiencing. So you just need to understand that this is an impermanent situation. It's in the past. The snake didn't cause you any harm because you didn't cause the snake any harm. If you're not putting out harm, harm won't come back to you. So you're in this world as a human being, but there's also animals in this world, and you're going to interact with animals at some point. You're going to see spiders and ants and birds and, things like this, squirrels and rabbits. You're going to see those kinds of things. But if your mind craves permanence, that you don't ever want to see those things, then that's where you're going to experience the stress and anxiety and other painful feelings. So you need to be able to let that craving go, where you understand that, yeah, this is going to happen, and this is an impermanent situation. I didn't cause harm to the snake, therefore the snake's not going to cause harm to me. That's the natural law of God. And now you can just rest at ease and be peaceful.
Okay, yeah, I understood. But it's just difficult for me right now to get rid of that, seeing what I experience. Yeah, like how I can, what kind of method that I can get rid of that.
This
Scary.
mental discipline section that I'm teaching right now, when you learn the whole thing, this is what's going to help you to eliminate that out of the mind, because the mind's holding on and clinging to that experience. And that's why the mind hasn't been able to let it go. So you're going to need all 3 steps here. So when I teach it all, you'll be able to see how to let that go, because it's not permanent.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome. I think I saw a microphone in the back. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I have a question that is disturbing me so much that I think that I always been a person that have compassion. So like when I feel compassion for others, it often turns into sadness. And how can I hold compassion without absorbing so much pain. Like, for example, when I go out for fun, when I see the street cleaners, they are like so busy and toys on, and I would feel so sad and have no mood for fun. And in China, a lot of workers, like street cleaners, they work over 15 hours a day, and they got very, very low salary. So I'm feeling so sad about them. How can I just not disturb myself?
Okay. The first thing to understand is it's not your compassion that's causing the painful feelings. That's a misunderstanding that the mind has. What's causing the painful feelings is your craving, desire, attachment. When you practice compassion and you're practicing it in the middle way, there is no painful feelings associated with compassion. It's your craving for everybody to experience a certain thing. And you need to be able to understand that those people who are cleaning the street, that's a choice that they're making. They're choosing to work that job, and they're choosing to work for that amount of money. That's a choice that they're making. And you can't change other people to do things differently. You need to be able to understand that everybody is their own individual being. Everybody's making their own individual decisions in life, and they're experiencing their own results. Your role in this life isn't to go out into the world and fix what you think to be wrong about other people. Those people have chosen those jobs for a reason, and that's what they're choosing to do in this world. And for you to think that they're experiencing something bad or miserable or horrible, and now you're experiencing the painful feelings of it, that is your craving for permanence. And you need to let go of the perception that just because someone's sweeping the streets, they're maybe having a horrible life or a difficult life. That's a perception that your mind's clinging to. A perception is a view or opinion about the world that may or may not even be true, right? So that person who's sweeping the streets could be having more joy and peace than you, right? You don't know that. So you need to be able to let go of your mind clinging to this perception of how you think that person is experiencing the world, and not have a craving for everybody to experience the world a certain way. Instead, it would be better for you to focus on your own growth and your own development and training your mind. That's what's going to lead to your peace and joy, not going out into the world and trying to change other people to do things a certain way. Okay, so I'm going to keep on going here. I don't see any questions online. So I'm going to help you guys to now understand the mindfulness, right? Mindfulness. This is the words of the Buddha. I'm once again going to read it to you, and then I'll teach it to you. The Buddha says, "In what, monks, is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness." So he's talking about 4 things here: body as body, feelings as feelings, mind as mind, mental objects as mental objects. This is called right mindfulness, and it relates to what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. I'm going to first teach you what is mindfulness, and then we're going to talk about the 4 foundations of mindfulness, because you wouldn't be able to practice right effort without right mindfulness. What mindfulness is, in general, it means awareness of mind. You're going to need to have awareness of what's going on in your own mind. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state, you go through the world, you don't even have an awareness of what's going on in your own mind, your own thoughts, your feelings, your ideas, and things like this. So generally, you're going to need to work on building that awareness of mind. Oftentimes people are using this word mindfulness in modern day conversations now, and they're using it in ways that the Buddha didn't actually teach. If you're interested in getting to enlightenment based on what the Buddha taught, you're going to need to understand how the Buddha describes this word mindfulness. So when you're studying his teachings, you understand how he's talking about it. He's talking about it as awareness of mind. But what you hear a lot of people say is they might say, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to that table? What they're really doing is they're replacing the word careful with mindful, right? So can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table? That's what they're really saying, but they're using this word mindful because they just don't understand how the Buddha used it. So if other people choose to use the word mindful in that way, that's their choice. That's a choice for them to make. Not everybody's going to understand things in the same way. But if you would like to understand it in the way that the Buddha taught it, he taught it as awareness of mind, because you would like to have awareness of what's going on in your own mind. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state, we're not aware of what's going on in our mind. We just plow through the world, knocking down trees and burning up the forest in terms of the way that we make unwise decisions. We might just haphazardly be treating people aggressive and hostile and harsh and bitter and not realizing that we're knocking down trees and burning up the forest. This is what I did before I learned these teachings. And I was at a certain point in my life and I smell smoke and I'm like, who lit that fire? And I looked behind me and I was like, who knocked down all those trees? And I realized it was me that was making all those unwise decisions. And it's because I didn't practice mindfulness. I wasn't aware of what was going on in my own mind, and I didn't have the wisdom to understand I was making unwise decisions in the past. But if you cultivate this mindfulness or awareness of mind, now you can have awareness of what's going on in your mind, and you can skillfully work with your mind to be able to now train it to actually perform better. But in more detail, you're going to need to know what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The 4 foundations of mindfulness is helping you to understand the life cycle that your discontent feelings are going to take so that you can actually get ahead of the curve and make decisions to transform this. The Buddha is talking about these bodily sensations. These bodily sensations are an early warning system that's alerting you that you're about to get angry or frustrated. What he's talking about here is if you've ever noticed a tingling in your body, a tightening in the chest, the tightening in the throat, the heat in the face, the pressure in the skull, this is the early warning system that you're about to get angry. You're about to get frustrated. Your mind's about to experience a discontent feeling. And it's an early warning system that's alerting you that this is about to occur. And what the Buddha teaches you to do is apply right effort to cut that off and let it go. It's kind of like if you were taking a boat from Canada to the UK. You are out in the middle of the sea. You would like to prevent this water from ever coming into the boat, because once the water gets into the boat, you've got a real problem to deal with. So if you're going through life, if you allow the anger to come into the mind, or the frustration or the guilt or the shame or any other discontent feelings, then your mind is now polluted with that feeling and you've got to get it out. And it's a lot harder to get it out once it comes into the mind. So if you can notice the bodily sensations and you can cut that off and let it go, now you can actually preserve the mind. You can protect the mind. You're not repressing your feelings or suppressing your feelings. You're actually cutting it off and letting it go before it becomes a feeling. So these bodily sensations are like your mind saying, I'm about to get angry. 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 And you're like, nope, not going to let you do that. And you cut it off and let it go. And now if you do that enough over time, you'll get to the point where your mind won't experience anger anymore. For an enlightened being, there's no arising of anger because the causes and conditions that are producing it have been uprooted out of the mind. So you need to be able to get ahead of the curve, and you need to be able to cut it off and let it go as a bodily sensation. But because your mind's not well trained at this point, it is going to become a feeling. You're going to miss it as a bodily sensation sometimes, and it's going to become a feeling. And if you missed it as a bodily sensation, the next best thing is to cut it off as a feeling. Let it go out of your mind. If you miss it as a feeling, then it's going to start affecting the condition of your mind. Have you ever been irritated or agitated for a few minutes, a few hours, a few days? Have you ever been grumpy and irritable for like a week or two? That's the condition of your mind. It's being affected. Of course, you've been grumpy and irritable for a week or two because you didn't understand this. You didn't understand to cut it off as a bodily sensation. You didn't understand to cut it off as a feeling. And now it affected the condition of your mind. And you walked around grumpy and irritable for like a week or two. But there's a better way here that the Buddha is teaching you, is you can cut it off and let it go. If you don't cut it off as a bodily sensation, and you don't cut it off as a feeling, and you don't cut it off as a condition of the mind, it's going to feed what's called a mental object. A mental object is a deeply rooted container in your mind. In this example, it's ill will. So right now, when you're listening to me talk, you're probably not angry. You're probably not frustrated or irritated. But you have this ability to become angry and frustrated. It's a deeply rooted container in your mind. It's a mental object. If one of your cravings, desires, attachments get triggered, that ill will is going to come flying up in your mind. And now that's where you're angry and frustrated and bitter and harsh and hostile. So what you would like to do is get ahead of the curve on this and cut it off as a bodily sensation and no longer feed those mental objects. We weren't born with anger. That's not the way we were born. We didn't come into the world with anger and hostility in our mind. It was developed over time. We didn't go into the nursery at the hospital hating other babies, but we actually developed it over time, right? Because when we were asking our parents for chocolate and ice cream, they were like, sure, you can have chocolate and ice cream. Here you go. And we're like, wow, thank you so much. You're the best mommy and daddy ever. And then we're like, can we have some more chocolate and ice cream maybe the next day? And they're like, sure, here you go. Here's your chocolate and ice cream. Ah, thank you so much. You're the best mommy and daddy ever. We're so happy. We got our chocolate and ice cream. But at some point we said, Mommy, Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? And they said, no. And we, you're the worst mommy and daddy ever, right? We were so angry. And we thought it was mom and dad that was causing that. It was your own mind. It was your craving, desire, attachment. As long as you got what you wanted, you were happy. But when you didn't get what you wanted, that anger and frustration came up. And now you formed and fed this mental object of ill will. So the Buddha is teaching you this life cycle that your discontentedness is taking so that you can take action. You can apply right effort to cut that off and let it go. And you can transform your mind. The way that this will look in day-to-day life is, let's just say you're watching the news and you're noticing this tingling sensation, this tightening in the chest, this tightening in the throat, this heat in the face and this pressure in the skull. You know you're about to get angry because you're watching the news and there's something that you're seeing that you don't agree with, that you're having a craving about. Well, instead of just sitting there and dwelling in that and allowing your mind to form the anger in the mind and becoming a feeling, instead apply right effort. Cut off the news. Go outside for a walk. Go to the bathroom, wash your hands, go to the kitchen, get a glass of water. That's applying right effort to cut off and let go of that arising of the discontent feelings. If you do that long enough, you'll get to the point where you completely transform your mind and you can watch the news just fine and there's no anger and hostility coming up. But you're going to need to watch over your mind with mindfulness. It's almost like a computer. If you had like a virus scanner that was watching over your computer, it's just sitting there in the background, watching over your hard drive. And if any virus comes onto the hard drive, it will quarantine it and it will clean it up and get it off the hard drive. Well, it's the same kind of thing with your mindfulness. Your mindfulness is watching over your mind. And it's protecting your mind. It's guarding your mind. And if at any point you see an unwholesome quality coming up into your mind, you would like to apply right effort to cut it off and let it go. It's like quarantining the files and cleaning it up off the hard drive. So this is how you practice right mindfulness. You pay attention to that arising of the bodily sensations, applying right effort to cut it off and let it go. If you miss it, cut it off as a feeling. If you miss it there, cut it off as a condition of the mind. Otherwise, it's going to feed these mental objects. And you need to be aware of those symptoms of the mental objects. For those of you guys that have studied the 10 fetters, those are the mental objects. You need to be aware of those symptoms that are arising up in the mind so that you can apply effort to cut that off and let it go. So the way you might think about this is like a wild bush. If a wild bush was growing, you would like to cut it back and cut it back and cut it back and cut it back and cut it back. And eventually you uproot it out of the mind and it will never grow again. right? So it's the same thing as you're cutting back at the bodily sensations. You're cutting that back and cutting it back and cutting it back and cutting it back. And now eventually you uproot it out of the mind and you'll never experience those discontent feelings. So do you guys have any questions on right mindfulness, this awareness of mind and the 4 foundations of mindfulness? Yes, ma'am.
On this, I have a question associated with non-self.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is my body, my feelings, my minds, my minds?
It's not mine. It doesn't belong to me because there's no me here. This being is experiencing bodily sensations. This mind is experiencing anger or frustration or any other feelings, but it's not mine. It doesn't belong to me because there's no me here. But the mind will tend to think that way. When there is personal existence view, it'll think I am angry or I am frustrated. That's not true reality. True reality is that the mind is experiencing anger or the mind is experiencing frustration.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, you're welcome. Got some impermanence here. You see that? Can't be quiet all the time, right? And if you understand impermanence, you can remain peaceful and joyful and concentrated and focused. But if you're craving permanence, when you hear a sound like that, you'll be frustrated or agitated, right? Just understand it's impermanent.
I have a question. Still a little bit confused about the difference between mind and mental objects. Is that like the major difference of the deepness or the periods, the time? Because I understand what is the body, what is feeling, what is mind, but then the difference between mind and mental objects is still a little bit confusing.
Yeah, so the condition of the mind is where you're like generally agitated or frustrated. It's for several minutes, several hours, several days, or maybe a week or two. That's the general condition of the mind. And it can be conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings are neither painful nor pleasant. That's like the general condition of the mind. A mental object is a deeply rooted container in the mind. So for example, ill will was one that I gave, that this is a deeply rooted container, and then that produces the grumpiness and irritability. The grumpiness and irritability is the condition of the mind, but it came from the mental object of ill will. Another example is a mental object is conceit. Conceit is like arrogance and pride, measuring and comparing that you're superior, inferior to other people. So the mental object is conceit. That's what's producing that. But the general condition of the mind is arrogance, right? So the mental object is like the pollution itself. And you need to be able to see those symptoms. So there's something called the 10 fetters, which are 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered that the mind has. And those are the mental objects. Mm-hmm. Your mic's not on yet.
And to cut off the body sensation, it may be easier just to go out, do some.
Okay, so it's the same process. For those of you guys online, she asked, how do you cut off for the condition of the mind or the mental objects? It's actually the same process, and I'm going to teach that to you next because you wouldn't be able to practice right mindfulness and right effort without the next step. So I'm going to teach you that. By the way, could you set that mic aside because we need to change those batteries. Those are impermanent as well, just like everything else. All right, so I don't see any questions online, so let me go to the next step and teach you guys the next step. So this is right concentration. And these, in the words of the Buddha in the Eightfold Path, he's sharing what's called the jhanas. He's explaining to you these preliminary phases that the mind experiences on its way to the first stage of enlightenment. Here, he's not explaining how to actually practice right concentration. He explains it in other parts of his teachings. Here in the Eightfold Path, he's explaining the results of having put together the entire Eightfold Path. You're going to experience these enhanced qualities of mind. One of the enhanced qualities of mind, for example, when you get into the second jhana, or this preliminary phase that the mind experiences, is there's no longer a subconscious mind. In the unenlightened state, prior to the second jhana, you have a conscious mind and you have a subconscious mind. But by the time you get to the second jhana, one of the things that occurs is you have unification of the mind, or oneness of mind, where you have full awareness of the entire mind. What the subconscious is a aspect of your mind that you're unaware of. Your conscious mind, you're aware of it, and there's pollution in that conscious mind. But your subconscious mind, you're not aware of it, and it actually has deeper pollution than your conscious mind. If you've ever been around friends before and you just blurted something out without even thinking about it, and you were like, whoa, that was pretty racist. Like, why did I say that? I don't think that way. Or that was pretty sexist. Like, I don't think that way. Where did that come from? That came from your subconscious mind. It just got thrown up into your conscious mind, and then you just blurted it out. So in order to get to enlightenment, you're going to need to have full awareness of the entire mind, because you need to purify the entire mind. So by the time you get to the second jhana, you'll have full awareness of your entire mind. There's no longer a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. It's just that you're conscious and aware of the entire mind. That's what you're doing on the path, is you're moving to this higher consciousness, this higher mind, where you have full awareness of the entire mind and you purify the entire mind. So I'm not going to teach you what these jhanas are today, because that's not something that I'm going to be teaching today. But these are preliminary phases where you're experiencing enhanced qualities of mind before you get to the first stage of enlightenment. In terms of teaching you how to practice right concentration, I'll teach that to you, because that's what you would like to be able to know, because that's what's actually going to lead to the growth and improvement, so that you can experience these enhanced qualities of mind, among other things. So here, the Buddha, in his teachings, he teaches you to practice meditation and practice singleness of mind. This is how you practice and develop right concentration, to cultivate concentration in the mind. You're going to need a regular daily meditation practice, where you're practicing breathing mindfulness meditation and loving kindness meditation. These are the two primary forms of meditation that the Buddha taught, because it addresses two of the three primary problems that he discovered in the mind. Oftentimes people are out there doing all kinds of different meditations. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of meditations in the world right now. But the Buddha didn't teach all of those. He only actually taught 4 meditations. And you're only going to need 2 as a primary form of meditation. And the other 2 are like specialized meditations that you only need in unique situations. So what I encourage people to do is first start with breathing mindfulness meditation. Spend about 4 weeks building that up. Maybe as long as 6 or 8 weeks, building up your breathing mindfulness meditation practice, where you'd like to gradually build up to 2 or 3 sessions for 30 minutes. Now, this can sound like a lot for you, that maybe 30 minutes twice a day or 3 times a day. It might seem like that's a lot, but there's probably unbeneficial things that you're doing in your life right now that you could probably scale back a bit, and you'd actually have time to be able to dedicate to something like meditation. Maybe you're searching social media for hour after hour after hour, or maybe you're watching YouTube video after YouTube video after YouTube video. You could actually scale that back a bit, and you'd actually have more time for meditation. It can take you 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to 2 or 3 sessions for 30 minutes. But you're not in a race or a competition with anybody. You're in your own independent journey to enlightenment. So just gradually build up your practice, starting with breathing mindfulness meditation, and then bring in your loving kindness meditation. And as you're building this up, you're going to see more and more focus, more concentration, because that breathing mindfulness meditation, you're focused on the breath. And anytime the mind moves off the breath, that's your mindfulness or awareness of mind. And then when you cut that off and let it go, you're training your mind to let go, because craving, desire, attachment, your mind's going to be holding on and craving permanence. And now when you come back to the breath, your mind is going to develop that focus and concentration. So the goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Sometimes that's what people think when we give them the guidance that when your mind moves off the breath, to cut it off and let it go and come back. That's not the goal. The goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. In fact, you'll never be able to eliminate your thoughts as long as you're alive. You are going to have thoughts. Even an enlightened being in meditation will have thoughts. But the difference is in the unenlightened state, you will have a bombardment of thoughts. It'll be like thought. That might be what you experience today. Or you might have a thought, you follow it for a period of time, you look at it, you play with it, you indulge in it, and you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm meditating. let me bring my mind back, right? It might be 2 or 3 minutes down the road. That's what you experience in the unenlightened state because the mind's undisciplined, it's untrained. But what you would like to get to is sooner and sooner, you're noticing that you have a thought and you cut it off and let it go easier and easier. Because an enlightened being, they have thoughts during meditation, but they notice it right away and they cut it off and let it go. Then there's this quietness and this stillness in between their thoughts. For about 30 seconds to a minute, there's this quietness and stillness in between their thoughts. And then they'll have a thought and they'll just bring their mind right back. So you're going to have thoughts. But what you're doing is you're building this internal mechanism in your mind that you can have mindfulness or awareness of mind and you can cut off and let go. That's what's helping you to practice the mindfulness and the right effort. So the meditation, you're cutting off anything and everything that's coming up. But in your day-to-day life, you're only cutting off the unwholesome thoughts, right? It's just like a professional athlete that I might be a pole vaulter and I go into the gym and I do weight training, cardiovascular training, agility training. But when I do my sport, it looks completely different, right? So this is normal. When you're doing meditation, you're training in one way. And then in day-to-day life, you're training in a different way because you're cutting off everything and anything in your day-to-day life, or in your meditation, because you're training your mind to let go. But in your day-to-day life, you're only cutting off unwholesome thoughts. So if you have the thought of calling up your mom and saying, hey, how you doing? Would you like to go to lunch? Would you like to have dinner? Sure. No need to cut that off. That's a wholesome thought. But if you're thinking about punching your boss in the face, cut that off, right? That's going to cause you unwholesome results. So anytime you have an unwholesome thought in your day-to-day life, cut that off and let it go. And the meditation is what's going to help you to do that, as well as your mindfulness and your right effort. But then you also would like to practice singleness of mind. Singleness of mind is where you're just doing one thing at a time. Oftentimes people are taught to try to do multiple things at a time. They call this multitasking, where maybe you're at work and you're trying to do multiple things. Your mind actually can't do multiple things at one time. It can only do one thing at a time. So if you're talking on the phone, if you're watching TV and you're eating a sandwich, you're not actually doing all those things at one time. You're talking on the phone for a few seconds, you're watching TV for a few seconds, and you're eating a sandwich for a few seconds. Your mind's basically racing around and racing around and racing around. And if you've ever been to a horse track and you've seen horses race around a horse track, when they go to the barn, they have a very difficult time calming down. They're all hyped up. This is why if you go to work and you're racing around, you might come home from work and find it very difficult to rest and relax. You might notice stress or anxiety in your mind. So you would like to get to the point where you're not doing that, where you understand that your mind actually can't multitask. It's physically impossible for your mind to do more than one thing at a time. So if you're talking on your phone with your mom, you would like to just talk on the phone. And now this conversation can just be 10, 15 minutes. You can do what you need to do, be very polite and respectful, have a great conversation, and you can move on with your day. But if you're trying to do 3 things at one time, where you're talking on the phone, watching TV, and eating a sandwich, this conversation lasts 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour, and you're wasting your time. And then maybe you're not talking with her in the most polite and kind and friendly, respectful way because you can't bring forth your wisdom in that situation. And you might have even agreed to do certain things for your mom that when you get off the phone, you can't even remember because your concentration wasn't there, right? Or say you're washing dishes and you're not focused and you're not concentrated. You might actually cut yourself with a knife. And now next thing you know, you're in the hospital spending money to pay for medical bills and you're spending your time. So you'd like to just do one thing at a time. So if you're washing dishes and you notice that your mind's wandering, cut that off and let it go. Come back to whatever it is that you're doing. If you're at work and you're in a business meeting and you're noticing that your mind's thinking about your trip to Thailand 3 months from now and you just can't wait to go to Thailand, cut that off and let it go because you need to focus at work and you need to do a good job at work. Your mind's not ready for Thailand yet. Just focus on what's going on at work. And if you do this more and more, practicing singleness of mind, you'll have focus, you'll have concentration. It'll be impossible for your mind to actually have anything else other than concentration. The way that I think about it is that if you had a piece of wood and you had a steel rod and you grinded this steel rod back and forth, initially it's going to bounce around a lot because you don't have a groove yet. But if you grind this steel rod back and forth long enough, you're going to get a groove going. And now when it bounces out, you're going to actually know that, and you're going to be able to bring it right back to the groove. But if you get this steel rod going back and forth long enough, you'll get a deeper and deeper groove, and it'll never bounce out. It'll just stay in that groove all the time. So your mind is the same way. If you practice singleness of mind and you're doing that day in and day out, and anytime you see your mind move off of that, you come back, eventually you're going to get a deep enough groove. Your mind's just always focused. It's always concentrated. It doesn't matter what's going on around you. You can always stay focused and concentrated. So this is right concentration, practicing meditation and practicing singleness of mind. This is what's going to help you to build right mindfulness, and it's going to help you to apply right effort in your day-to-day life. So any questions on right concentration? Yes, Rachel.
My question's around loving kindness meditation.
Mm-hmm.
The current practice is to perform loving kindness meditation for the meditation in the morning. And there's no longer any particular individual that I'm putting in the loving kindness meditation. It's more generic. But the mind doesn't notice any hateful feelings. But then before I stopped doing loving kindness meditation, and maybe after 2 or 3 months, hate was creeping back into the mind.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, is it wise to just continue this loving kindness meditation practice for a prolonged period of time? And what time would that be? Or maybe not do it, maybe just do breathing mindfulness meditation and see where this hatred is directed to again? I'm unsure of where to go from here.
What you would like to do is continue with your loving kindness meditation until you've seen an entire year where there's no anger, there's no frustration, not even the slightest irritation or annoyance towards another person. Because even though we call it anger, hatred, and ill will, there's all those lesser versions. So even if you have the slightest irritation towards someone, there's still that pollution of anger, hatred, and ill will in the mind. So you would like to go an entire year where you haven't even seen the slightest little inclination of that irritation or annoyance towards others. That's how you'll know it's completely out of the mind. Because someone who's actively training the mind like this, if you can go an entire year without that, you can be pretty confident that you've uprooted the ill will out of the mind. But even then, you're not interested in just resting and just thinking like, okay, it's all gone. You would still like to be practicing mindfulness and look over the mind. So if you do see any of it creeping back in, you can come right back in with the loving kindness meditation. But you'd like to get at least an entire year of not even the slightest annoyance towards others. Mm-hmm. Okay, I don't see. Oh, actually, we have a question here on YouTube. This person is asking, Mr. David, why do people, watch the news? Well, it's nice to know what's going on in the world, but the thing is that people have craving for the world to be a certain way, and that's where the discontentedness is coming in. There's no harm in watching the news. The news isn't the problem. The problem is that the mind is craving for the world to be a certain way. And now when you watch the news, you're experiencing contact through your eyes and your ears that you're now experiencing and realizing the world is not the way that you want it to be. And now the mind experiences anger and frustration. So it's unwise to base your peacefulness on what other people are choosing to do, because other people will never do things your way. So that's why people watch the news, is just to be informed. But there's no harm and there's no problem with watching the news. It's just that the mind's craving, desire, attachment is going to produce discontentedness when you watch the news, because your mind is wanting things to be a certain way. But you can eliminate that. You can get to the point where you watch the news and your mind's very peaceful and joyful. But you're probably going to need to go away from the news for a period of time, maybe like a year or so, and not watch it. So that way your mind can let go of this craving for the world to be a certain way. And now over time, once you get a good year beyond that, you can just slowly start integrating it back in. And then you can watch it with the mind being peaceful, and you're just being informed of what's going on in the world, rather than forming your feelings based on what's going on into the world, because that's just causing your mind to be shaken up. Okay. I don't see any other questions anywhere. All right. So what I'm going to do is just kind of summarize what we've been talking about, and just in class with you guys is right effort is taking the initiative to eliminate unwholesome aspects of the mind and cultivate wholesome qualities in the mind. You need to apply the effort to eliminate the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome. Then there's mindfulness, which is awareness of mind and practicing the 4 foundations of mindfulness, being aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. This is something you develop over time through training the mind with meditation and practicing mindfulness in day-to-day life. Then there's right concentration, which is practicing your meditation, building up your breathing mindfulness meditation and your loving kindness meditation to 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes, understanding that can take 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build that up. And then you'd like to be practicing singleness of mind, where you're just doing one thing at a time, not allowing the mind to wander, but understand it will wander. And then that's where you cut that off and let it go, and you bring it back to whatever it is that you're focused on. And more, now you'll be able to have singleness of mind. It's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress to produce this mental discipline that you need to now bring in the moral conduct so you can now interact with people in a more loving, kind, and warm and gentle way. Because as long as you're bitter and harsh and hostile to people, you're going to experience that all coming back to you. So I'm going to end class here by just thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and grow and develop on the path. As you guys would like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunities for you to do that. Tonight at 6:30, we're going to have meditation here in the classroom where you can just come and I'm going to do meditation with you guys. And then I'm just going to open up to any and all questions that you guys might have related to the teachings of the Buddha, the path to enlightenment, the temples, Buddhism, any personal challenges that students have. You're welcome to come here because it syncs up with the night market, because the night market is right out here if you're coming to the Sunday night walking market. And then tonight at 9 p.m., I'm going to be teaching here as well the same exact topic that I taught today. I'm going to be teaching it at 9 p.m. because I live stream it. So that way, like for example, right now, the people in Europe, they're actually sleeping, so they can't attend a live class. So I teach at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. as well, so that the people all throughout the world can learn. So if you guys are interested in learning, you can learn in these live classes. You can learn from the recordings. You can learn from the books. You're more than welcome to come talk to me, and I will help you to be able to get plugged into the resources you need to be able to get started. We have many events here. Even on this Wednesday, I'm going to be here at 9 a.m. doing meditation with you guys. And then I'm going to be teaching about a Buddhist pilgrimage and what a Buddhist pilgrimage is and why someone might be interested to do this. I'm going to be using pictures and photos from a recent Buddhist pilgrimage that I just did in India and Nepal. And then on Fridays, we have a social event where at 6 p.m. we come together and we play games. We have like a little party. We play music. We can kind of socialize with people. So if you like to come on Fridays at 6 p.m., you can come and enjoy a social event. So there's plenty of opportunities for you to connect with our community. We have a bulletin board over there that helps you to see the events that we have. You can also check our website with the events calendar and all that kind of stuff. And you can also come and talk to me. So whatever you guys choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.